4-point approach. Every community has issues. Main Street's a blueprint. The issues that are in Pickwa are going to be different than the issues in Medina, and will be different from the issues in the Cleveland Warehouse District. So you just have the general blueprint of how to combat those issues. And through those 4 committees, you've got a committee that can tackle each and every issue that comes up. So first, the organization committee. This committee is much more concerned with the internal health of the organization itself, like volunteer development, communications, public relations, fundraising, reporting, and human resources. And we'll go into some of those. Fundraising first. Public sources are a great form of budgeting for a Main Street program. Typically, we think that a Main Street program should receive about 1/3 of its budget from public sources, and most often that's the municipality. Sometimes there's county help, but more often than not, it's the municipality that puts in that that 1/3. Stakeholder support. This is going to be membership and sponsorship. The private sector, those that benefit from being part from having a healthy downtown. And that's not just those that own businesses, but people that live near the downtown. Hospitals and universities benefit from a healthy downtown. So does industry. So anybody that benefits from your work should be a member. And earned income is that 3rd leg. And earned income is going to include special events, having events that raise money. It's going to include merchandise sales. This could be cookbooks, calendars, decks of cards. And that makes up what we recommend is a healthy source of funding. That way, if one part of the funding, if one piece of the funding dwindles, hopefully you can make it up in another area, which has been the case in the last couple of years as public funding has dwindled a bit. Earned income opportunities have really increased. Board development is another part of the organization committee's charge. Reasons being that without a strong board of directors, the executive director and staff are expected not only have the vision for the organization, but also to do all of the work, which is not necessarily effective. And without a strong board, nonprofit organizations show limited success in meeting both client and community needs. And this is certainly true, and that's why an organization committee really does always have to be on top of board development, that you've got the right leadership in place, that you're always renewing the leadership, that the right people are in the right positions to get the job done, because it takes a lot of work for anybody that's been involved with revitalization. There's too much to get done not to have the right people in place. A couple other pieces from the organization that we sort of jumped over, though, was public relations. That do people know the organization, what it does, who's involved? Do they attribute the good work of that's getting done in the downtown to the revitalization organization and not necessarily to other entities that aren't doing the work? So it's much more about the internal health. That volunteer development is another huge piece. A good example, I think it was in Vermilion in 2009. They logged 14,000 volunteer hours, which is just an incredible number. But they had to have a system to do that, a way to recruit volunteers, a way to handle them once they're involved, a way to keep them coming back and satisfied. But it can make a huge difference for a downtown to be able to log 14,000 hours. Economic restructuring, the second committee. This committee is concerned with the economic health of the downtown, and it's economic restructuring, not economic development, because economic development has become using taxpayer money to attract industry, using taxpayer money to attract new retail to the edges of town, which is really an insane proposition, considering that paying for new retail to come into the edge of your town doesn't really create anything new. It simply cannibalizes what you already have. If I buy 10 pair of shoes in over a course of a year, would make me pretty eccentric, but just because somebody opens a new shoe store on the edge of town doesn't mean all of a sudden I'm going to start buying 20 pairs of shoes. It just means I'm going to shift my shopping patterns. And economic development, as the way it is now, is a winner-take-all proposition. The biggest companies wield the greatest influence. They have the best lawyers. They can package and market all their numbers to the greatest benefit. They get to do what they want because they're so big and so unwieldy. And it really isn't a level playing field for small, locally owned businesses. And this idea that it becomes an arms race to the bottom, that one county, one city, one state all wants to undersell the next state to attract Honda or this next industry, this these jobs, and everybody tries to give away what they have to land these jobs, when the real loser are the communities that give away this taxpayer money, that give away all these incentives. There's not enough money right now to give any away to billion-dollar businesses and corporations that certainly don't need the tax breaks. And it doesn't add up. Spending all this money to have a business come to town for marginal jobs that won't necessarily last doesn't add up to good policy. Creating a high quality of life is a much more sustainable policy for attracting jobs. So what economic restructuring should be? Develop the local economy from within. To do that, strengthen existing businesses first and develop entrepreneurs. Well, strengthening existing businesses, we'll go a bit more into that. Oh, and why this is a good idea. Well, it doesn't rely on tax incentives. I think there should be a lot more incentives that go to locally owned businesses and small businesses, but currently it doesn't cost much taxpayer money for small businesses to open, and it keeps more money local. A lot of statistics that we've all seen that you spend $1 at a big box store, and 10 to 15 cents stays in your community. Chains 30 to 40 cents, and locally owned 40 to 55 cents of that dollar stay local. And why that is because locally owned business has local accountants, local attorneys, probably goes to a local church, buys their car local. They do everything local to where Walmart, their attorneys, their accountants, everybody's back in Bentonville, Arkansas. So that money that is getting spent somewhere else. And local businesses donate more time and money into the community. Anybody that's been involved in fundraising knows that, or trying to get volunteers knows that, good luck going to a national chain and asking for any of those things. Almost everybody goes to the locally owned businesses and hits them up for resources. How economic restructuring relates to preservation. Well, if you can assist the existing businesses in doing a better job, if you can help counsel or coach them into doing a better job of marketing their products, into being better salespeople, well, you'll drive up the demand for goods and services. Increased goods and services will in turn lead to increased sales. Increased sales leads to increased rents, and finally increased rents lead to increased value. So just driving up, helping businesses improve on the front end can really have a huge impact on the back end, with buildings being worth more, buildings selling more often, or buildings getting renovated more. When the value goes up, there's more money to take out to renovate a project, to renovate a space. So the ER plan: strengthen existing businesses, fill vacancies, and assemble incentives and capital, know the market, monitor and report performance, and work with promotions on shop local. Let me jump back then. Strengthen existing businesses. There's a number of strategies for doing this. I think first and foremost, though, there has to be a good relationship with the downtown revitalization organization and the business owners. Do they work well together? Do they trust the organization? Do they know what one another's selling? Are they doing a good job? I think one of the things that we've seen that's the biggest detriment to downtown is really weak business owners that don't keep regular hours, that don't clean their stores, that don't offer good customer service. Just because they own a business doesn't mean they really know too much about running a business, and that's somewhere where they can be assisted. Almost every meeting I go into, a community says, well, we have a parking problem. And then they'll say, but we need more business. And it's pretty much impossible to have a parking problem and have a district full of weak businesses. Typically, the real issue is that you've got bad businesses or business owners that aren't carrying their weight. If they were all really strong, you would have a parking problem, and that would be a good thing. So work with the existing businesses on helping them do a better job, create that relationship, and start sharing resources. Create a network, provide them with maybe customer service webinars or materials, share good blogs with them, any resources you can. Filling vacancies. One of the best ways to fill vacancies is to strengthen your existing businesses. If all the businesses in your district improve and start having more sales, well, the streets are going to be busier, and business owners will naturally find their way to a healthy district. The healthiest districts in the state do not recruit businesses whatsoever. So there's a lot of reasons to sort of hold up on trying to go out and recruit businesses to come to your district. As Cindy Mack in Defiance said, that clean your house before you invite people over, and I think that really relates here. Work with the businesses you have to make them as strong as possible, and it's going to be a lot easier to try to attract new businesses into your district. Assemble incentives and capital. This isn't. There's not necessarily a magic number for running a business, for making this work. If renovating a building, at the end of the day, it doesn't return what you've invested, no one's going to do it. So if there's a gap, somebody needs to understand where that gap is and find an incentive or a way to fill it. There's a reason that buildings aren't getting renovated, and it's probably because it doesn't make any economic sense to do it, and that's something that the ER committee really needs to understand. Know the market and monitor and report performance. I think that those are important to come after the top three, which are far more important. And then finally, work with promotions on Shop Local is a great strategy to increase or strengthen the existing businesses. And here's a couple examples of some good campaigns in other places. And recently, Lakewood put out this information. Working on some Shop Local ideas. They did a study and found out where people spent their money, and who spent the most, and what the spending trends were, and what kind of impact it would make on their community. So it's a Shop Local, Shop Lakewood, Shop Late Thursdays. Again, a very successful campaign that they've used to get people shopping their locally owned businesses. And again, Lakewood has no problem attracting new businesses. All their existing businesses have been helped by their efforts, have improved, and so new businesses naturally want to be there because they can see success. Design committee, the elements of the design committee: education, technical assistance, and public design. Education, here's a good example of Darren and Orville taking school kids on a tour and showing them about the history of the district, the buildings, when they were built, what sort of qualities they have. A huge piece of having a successful downtown is getting people proud about what the history is and what's there. If it's meaningless, no one's ever going to try to protect it or save it. But once people start to care for a building or a district and know what it means to them, then they're a lot more likely to get involved. So public education is a really big piece of the design committee. Also, when it comes to public education, is educating property owners on what makes sense and what good design is. And clearly here, somebody was not educated and filled in these windows. I don't know whether they got a great deal on windows, but this is a disaster. Putting in these small little windows and bricking up the rest, it looks crazy. So, oftentimes it's cheaper to do the right thing than it is to make a mistake here. So, another big piece of this is public education. Here's public spaces and how you deal with those. Here's a great example of just a very attractive public space that's welcoming, that people will want to use, and it's done with quality. So the design committee will oftentimes want to work with the city to make sure that public spaces are treated properly, that they're welcoming, inviting, and work well for people. Signage is another big piece of what the design committee can do. All too often we've adopted suburban signage standards and ordinances and tried to place them downtown, which simply doesn't work. Downtown signage needs to be for slow-moving cars. It needs to be for pedestrians. We don't want to try to convince people to drive through downtown at 50 miles an hour. It needs to slow them. So here's Lebanon, who has a great wayfinding package downtown. And then here's a nice banner showing, highlighting some different locations, some different venues in the district. Again, talking about that signage, a lot of downtowns don't allow for blade signs or don't allow for sandwich boards or these sort of signs, and why not? What's it hurt to have attractive signs that help locally owned businesses, that help small businesses, that help them market and be successful? So, so the design committee would often look at the signage ordinances and try to make improvements. Parking, there's a map in this picture of where all the parking spaces are in this district and a general map of the district. So design committees are often charged with understanding the parking issues, and more often than not, it's management. It's not a lack of parking, it's how the parking is being utilized, and do people know where the spaces are, and are they being used effectively?